Welcome to another episode in our personal empowerment audio series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder. And our program today is on getting in and out of trouble. Now, that's a place I've found myself venturing through many times in my life. Of course, there's two kinds of trouble, I think. There's the thinking kind of trouble, the perplexing problem, the difficult situation you find yourself in where you have to figure out a way to do things differently or to get out of this. But there's that other kind of trouble, the emotional kind of trouble, the kind of trouble that you remember when somebody used to say, "Oh, you're in trouble, boy, you're in big trouble now. Just wait till your dad gets home or your mom gets home." That kind of trouble, that feeling like, uh-oh, we're in a situation that makes us feel like, uh-oh, that feeling, that carries on all the way from childhood. It's amazing. I was thinking, you don't remember how much something hurt physically from a long, long time ago. You could have broken your arm as a 5-year-old like I did, and I remember vividly how it happened, but I don't remember a thing about the pain. But I remember being in trouble when I was 5 years old, and it felt like, when my dad gets home or when my mom gets home, I'm like, such a bad's really going to happen. That feeling's still inside of us today.
The premise here is a proven one, which is that we carry that emotional baggage from childhood. You could talk about the scars or the wounds that we're still a little sensitive to. You can talk about tapes playing in our heads and these silent expectations that we create for ourselves. But everybody has from childhood some sense of inadequacy, some fear that they're not good enough, that some unhealed part of our childhood we carry with us into adulthood and then act that out. So we could be a successful person with credibility and the respect of our friends, and yet still feel silly or feel guilty or wrong or bad, or often it's just simply inadequate. And you look around and you say, well, why do I still feel inadequate, like I'm a little kid or something? I should have gotten over that. And it's a question that we're going to address today. Why indeed don't we get over that? Why do we carry it with us?
So we bring the old feeling of being in trouble into the current situation of actually having a troublesome thing happen or occur in our lives, or even contribute to it in our lives, and therefore make us more inadequate in currently dealing with the situation. I mean, if we could deal with it from our current level of maturation, it would be far better than the fact that we're dealing with it as a 5-year-old in many cases. So there's really several issues here. One is, what do we as people do to find ourselves getting in trouble? What happens when we're in trouble that feels like a long, long time ago and not like the current moment now? And what do we have to do as adults now to face the trouble and get out of it? So starting with the first question is how do we recognize that we're in trouble? What is in trouble? Well, we're in trouble when either as children we do something we're told not to do, or we're in trouble when we think what we do is wrong. So in either case, it's a feeling of either having been told it's wrong or having an intuitive feeling that it's wrong. It's a feeling like I've stepped over the line. I've done something wrong. I'm now worthy of being punished because I didn't do the right thing.
And well, it goes further than that, really, doesn't it? Because it's not only a feeling that I did something wrong, but that there's something basically wrong about me.
Right.
That's the assumption that we make as a little kid. It's easy to understand that you'd be confused as a kid, but that's the almost silent background message. That's the framework that we carry subtly, but it's still back there, and we need to access it and bring it forward if we're going to understand it and release it. This mindset from childhood that some part of me just isn't good enough.
Right, because some of the things that we did wrong, they were wrong, but some of the things we did wrong, quote unquote, were not wrong. Some of the things we just did in our own unique ways, and we were told that we were wrong. So we've got this huge expanded idea of what wrong is, what trouble is. You're in trouble because you were yourself. I mean, I got in trouble in school because I figured out a different way to solve a problem than the way the teacher figured is the way you're supposed to solve the problem. I got it right, but I got in trouble. So you can I got in trouble lots of times in my life for when my brother was talking at like a year and a half old and nobody he had any idea what he was talking about, but I could translate. I was like 4, I could translate. And I got in trouble for always doing that, So sometimes I make the rules. Sometimes there's this part of me, this higher self we always talk about, the conscience that knows what's right and wrong for me. But there's a lot of times that our parents or society create you're in trouble because you're just who you really are. I know so many kids that had a horrible experience in school, got in trouble all the time for just being themselves.
I get a great story along these lines. It demonstrates how complex this is, but I think we're going to sort it out today. I think this is really valuable. This was some time back when my brother's boy was still maybe 4 or 5 years old. My wife and I had just driven to St. Louis from California, 3-4 day car trip, and it was a big deal. Kids were excited as we pulled into my brother and sister-in-law's home. Well, this was all good for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, at which point the 2 kids, but especially little Michael, the 4-year-old, was getting bored with this not being the center of attention stuff, and disappears and comes into the room with the biggest pair of scissors I ever saw. Like, they look like hedge clippers, but he got them out of his mom's sewing basket, Well, my brother went through the roof, just couldn't believe that his young boy was doing this, and scolded him, admonished him, yelled at him, grabbed him by the arm, off to the room as if the boy had embarrassed my brother in front of us or something, right? And my brother comes down. He's apologizing for the boy's behavior, and anyway, he says we're going to go prepare dinner. You guys just relax. It must have been a long road trip. Steve, not 3 minutes goes by, and this little boy shows up with the same pair of scissors. And I go, oh, my Lord, what is this kid? And I said, Michael, come here. And he came toward me, but not close enough that I could get the scissors, right? Michael, don't you remember what happens when you get your mother's big scissors? And he grinned from ear to ear, and he said, yeah, I get into trouble. And off he went looking for his father. So I think we even need to talk about those times when that was maybe the only way, and I don't want to say the best way, but if that's the only way to get the attention of your parents, if that's the closest thing to the love, I mean, we need love so much, we'll settle for any kind of attention.
Yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the most attention.
There you go.
That is true. That is true. Some families, especially, I imagine with lots of kids, that would have to happen a lot.
Where they're competing for the parents' attention. Yeah. I've had clients tell me they actually felt invisible.
Yeah. As
if they didn't exist. It's like that Macaulay Culkin film from years ago, Home Alone.
Yeah.
Like there's so
many.
He
got in a lot of trouble.
They all go on vacation, they forget one of the kids, and didn't realize they'd forgotten one of the kids. But even in families of, I guess any family of any size, a single child, only child so-called, could feel the kind of inadequacy,
right?
The lack of love, the need for attention that can lead to them acting out and creating trouble at the same time that we're scarred forever. You see, if we haven't really done the therapy or the counseling or the deep introspection, maybe you're fortunate enough to have a partner who will help you with this process, and the two of you can be supportive of each other in doing this inner child work. But that's what it is. If you're going to escape once and for all, to really shed this feeling of, uh-oh, now you're in trouble. I mean, stop blaming the boss for making you feel that way. Stop blaming your spouse for making you feel that way, or your parents or your kids. And let's today, with this program, begin to take some ownership of that strange feeling, not just the mental idea that I got a problem here to solve, right? Or even the emotional angst that goes with it, but, uh-oh, you're in big trouble now.
It makes no sense to bring those qualities forward, the qualities of lack of intelligence, lack of wisdom, lack of creativity that you had in childhood. What you have now is a much more mature, evolved, awakened being. And that's who you need to bring to face the trouble of today. So the connection you have with feeling troubled like a child, bringing that feeling into dealing with being in a troubled situation today makes no logical sense. So we must make the disconnect. How do we disconnect that old feeling of, uh-oh, you're in trouble now, that sinking in the stomach? Not talking about the thought of, what do I have to do about this thing, but that sinking feeling. How do we disconnect that sinking feeling from the current situation? And the answer is to make that sinking feeling feel safe. So we need to add to that feeling of that sinking of the stomach, instead of a, oh my God, no, a, oh, yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, I'm letting it go. That feeling is now becoming safe. If I breathe into the feeling of, oh, I'm in trouble, and I make that feeling of I'm in trouble mixed with the feeling of, oh yeah, okay, I'm letting it go, I'm letting it go. If I mix those two things together, the I'm in trouble feeling weakens and weakens and weakens. And the more I think about the idea of remembering when I was in trouble and how that felt, but now I'm feeling like I'm this much more awakened being and I'm safe. I am safe. I am safe. So I can let it go. That takes the power of the feeling of being in trouble away. You'll remember it, but it won't have the power to affect you as much today.
We can do this in stages and phases, I think, beginning with, here's where I would begin anyway, creating consciously in paradise thinking, in the alpha brainwave level, okay, meditation, contemplation, that there's a difference between something you may have done, something you did, and the judgments that you've made about that, and who you really are. A distinction that is pretty easy for you to make now, but would have been confusing to you as a child. And so you could understand how as a child you'd conflate those concepts and think because you're in trouble now, there's something basically flawed. You're already feeling alienated and a little strange and disconnected, sort of alone and lonely in this world with this very heightened need for love and attention, as we've already mentioned. So if you can just reflect in a session, we'll do it a little bit later in this program, give you an opportunity to begin the process, but it is a process of breathing and letting go, and a nice big piece of this whole thing falls away, this baggage you've been dragging around with you, all this hurt, when you're able to accept that as a kid you got confused and thought because you got in trouble, you did something wrong, you should have known, whatever it was, that doesn't really reflect on who you are, who you really are, who you were. I hesitate to use the past tense because that child is still alive in you now. Everyone you've ever been is still within you. So that child, that embarrassed child that made that false assumption, uh-oh, I'm in trouble, I must be bad, I must be inadequate, my fears now are valid. I've got some evidence that I really am bad or stupid or wrong or ugly or not as good as my older brother or bigger sister or whatever it may be. And the kid, in a self-critical way, begins to build a case against him or herself. A cause of a lot of suffering in adults are these shadows left over from childhood. How much of it could you let go just by accepting that that's not true? That whatever we have done that we should not have done or failed to do that we should have done, whatever trouble we got into, it was just what we did or didn't do, what we said or didn't say, but doesn't really damage the essence of who you are, especially if that has spiritual connotations. The idea that you could not be defective, you cannot be broken, and even what other people call failure in life, you could see at most as some sort of mistake that ultimately is an opportunity for you to learn. And so even what others call failure, you reframe as something positive, onward and upward, unfolding, better, smarter, happier. Let's bring the kids along. Let's let go of the idea that because I got in trouble, deep inside there must be something wrong.
So if you could bring into each situation of trouble you face now in your life, the most adult you, the most mature you, the most evolved you, the most awakened you, and none of that fearful, inadequate child, the greatest you that is, into the situation where you get in trouble, what do? What does getting in trouble mean? If you bring the most awake you, what happens is it acknowledges the fact that what you just did to get yourself in trouble was unconscious. See, you go and do ostrich-like things, stick your head in the sand, ignore, act on autopilot, and you step over lines that you didn't even realize were there. You do things, we all do things to get in trouble unconsciously. It's just we forget to return that phone call, and we get, or there was a meeting and we missed the meeting. We get in trouble because our minds are elsewhere. It happens. We get in trouble. We do things. We always have. Now, if that wakes us up, then we're okay. If not, if we bring that old child into it, then we exacerbate that trouble and get really, we lie, we cheat, we get deeper and deeper into trouble, trying to not take responsibility for initially getting in trouble. But if you could wake yourself up when you realize you're in trouble, that you've unconsciously crossed the line. That's the key. Bob Dylan said, if I had thought about it, I never would have done it. So yeah, if you can bring your higher self, the sense of awareness, if wakes you up and brings the best you, then you don't go very far in trouble, and you've begun, in essence, instantly by having that and waking up, the process of getting out of trouble.
I guess I was just talking about my brother's boy when he was 4 years old. I guess when I was 3 or 4, my mother took me to the curb of the street out in front of her house and taught me that basic lesson that kids get taught: stop, look, and listen. And my mother was very firm about it. I mean, it's one of my earliest childhood memories, is that the curb is the beginning and the end of something significant, right? This is different off this curb, so stop. The tragedy is we grow up and we forget to stop, look, and listen in so many areas of our lives because, in part, we just are good at what we do. We become adequate, like learning to walk. You don't have to pay attention after a while. Or any game, your golf or tennis game or what have you. You don't have to think about form or style after a while. You just go with the flow. And so it is perhaps at work and your career, your particular area of expertise. The danger is getting so good that you do it automatically, and then you don't stop, look both ways, and then listen.
That's an important part, look both ways. If you travel around the world and you don't look both ways, you get hit by a car. And look both ways is an important concept. It's not just stop and look the same way you always looked. It's stop and check things out in all directions and look both ways, and listen. And it's one slow, conscious, deep breath away from doing something stupid quite often. It's just one stop, look, and listen. If I'd have thought about it, I never would have done it, away from not doing it.
The funny thing is we can break the habit by creating a better habit.
Yes.
Which is to drop the habit. We can create a habit of dropping habits and waking up.
Yes.
Can you say that better for me?
Actually, it's just a matter of waking up. It's paying attention to your life. It's not doing things on autopilot. Even if your autopilot works really great, you could do that well consciously and maybe even a little bit better. Everything you do when you walk, you don't have to think left foot, right foot, left. But anything that you do, don't take what you do for granted as being the best way you can do it. Wake up and think, I might be able to do this a little bit better. And that's the whole key. You won't get in trouble if you live your life consciously, because trouble is a line where it is. It's only when you unconsciously find yourself on the other side of the line that you're in trouble. You don't go, there's some trouble, I think I'm going to get in it. Now, there are people who do that. I shouldn't say that. There are people who go, there's some trouble, I think I'm going to get in it, because sometimes you have to get in trouble. See, there is a line. When I was a little kid, if I didn't do any of the things that would have gotten me in trouble, I would have never expanded to the place. You need to push the borders sometimes. You need to get, quote unquote, in trouble when other people draw the line of where trouble is. But when you know what trouble is and you cross your own line, I'm like, now I'm getting myself in trouble. You don't do that consciously. Even thieves think, no, I'm going to get away with it. They don't think I'm going to go to do this because I'm going to get caught and get put in jail.
We want to be sure not to overlook the obvious here, which is that you are in charge. Each one of us has to be the president of our own fan club, the captain of our ship, the master of our destiny. Only you can set yourself free from the fear of what other people might think about you. And if you're living your life in such a way, out of this sense of, gosh, I hope I can avoid getting into trouble, rather than where can I reach out and make a significant contribution and make a difference in the world and do something for somebody and help somebody else, then this is the waking up that we're asking for. And to let go of that expectation that maybe you're just not good enough. You have the keys, however. That's the important thing. And I remember the point in my life where I accepted first the responsibility of self-esteem. I'm the one that ultimately has a say of what I think about myself. I can't put that up for a vote. But what felt sort of like a burden, I became then aware that responsibility for my opinion of myself was actually a freedom to choose, provided I could stay awake or be smart enough and alert enough, awake enough to say, wait a minute, before I act, before I say something that I'm going to regret or do something that I'm going to resent, hold on, let me think this through, because I have choices. In fact, I've got lots of choices. I bet I have more choices than I'm even thinking about right now. Hold on, what's the hurry? And be that self. That's the self you find in paradise when you take a moment just to pause, to stop, look, and listen. That's when we switch from the animal brain to the higher brain function that human beings have been given as a gift. So that's why we have dominion over the lower kingdoms, because only the human, it appears, can reflect upon thinking, can transcend thought and feeling to be the witness and the one that chooses a response to what's going on in your mind and your heart. That's a pretty far-out concept.
So that higher self can sort of keep us out of trouble by like knowing where the line is and making the choice not to cross it. And what do we do then, of course, if we're in trouble? How do we get out of trouble when we're in trouble? Well, as I reflect back on my life, the times that I found myself deepest in trouble, most troubled and having the most difficult situations to deal with, the way I ended up getting out of trouble was asking for help. Like that's not the time that I need to like be all by myself. When I have extra to give, I'll give. But when I am needy, then I get to ask. And I remember a few times in particular when I was deeply in trouble that having a shoulder to lean on or a shoulder to cry on even made all the difference. So I think trouble is a state where we get to open up to our higher self, which opens up our empathy, our compassion, to connect with other people and to feel loved, loving, and lovable enough to be able to ask people for help and get help. When you're in trouble, there may simply be a matter of needing some other mind to bounce ideas off of to be able to come up with, does this solution I'm coming up with is it grounded in reality? I just need another person to talk to about it. When you're in trouble, oftentimes, whereas, you have to take responsibility, and the higher self says, I'm in this situation, and whether I put myself here or I found myself here, I'm here. Now, can I get out of this by myself? If not, I deserve to ask for help.
Usually as children, and even more so as adults, apology comes into our attempts to let go of feeling guilty, like we did something wrong, like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. It's a funny idea, apology. What is that really about? I think it's about humbling yourself. It's an act of contrition, supposed to be an accepting of responsibility. But as parents or managers of ourselves and managers of our relationships as well, I think we can go beyond simply asking other people for apologies or demanding apologies or even offering our own apologies to an environment of what did we learn? Or what did you learn? Let's take a simple example. Instead of a parent demanding an apology, or maybe in addition to a sense of contrition, saying, now, what did we learn from this? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be likely to help the child avoid this feeling of, uh-oh, I'm in trouble for the rest of their lives?
And so, as parents, you have the opportunity to draw a line for children and say, if there's something that you're thinking that you'd like to do that may or may not be something that you think would be getting you in trouble, just ask and I'll let you know. I'll draw that line for you. It's real important that there's some flexibility, because kids do need their creativity, and yet it's also very important that you say, you stay here on the front lawn because it's very dangerous out in the street, so you stay here. I also want to point out it's very important you don't say, now don't run out in the street, you'll get hit by a car, because that thought had probably never crossed the child's mind, and you're implanting that thought in their mind, and they're curious to see if it's true. So you don't say, don't run out in the street. That's like saying, don't think of a rainbow. What you want to say is, you stay here in the front lawn and play where it's safe, because it's dangerous out in the street, so you stay here and play. Always tell a child what to do instead of what not to do, and if they're going to be in trouble, let them know. Let them know these things they can do. These are the freedoms. These are what you can do.
Another little tip seems silly, but I bet you can see the wisdom in it. Whether you're a parent or a manager of people, approach the idea of trouble not from you're in trouble or don't put this on me. You're the one that, should have known, that kind of thing that goes on at home and at work. But rather, if there's trouble here, we're in trouble.
Let's face this together.
Let's do this together.
Trouble feels so much lighter with that sentence accompanying it.
Yeah. Like you already have a team. It may only be one other person. Maybe it's mom saying, that's okay. We'll work this out, right? That distinction that we talked about a few minutes ago about, something you did or said or should have done or should have said and failed to do or say, that doesn't mean that you were bad or wrong. And together we can work this thing. It's sort of like, Andy always did with Opie. It was always at the end of the day,
Same thing he did with Don Knotts, actually, if you think about it.
Well, there was always
that. Both of them.
Yeah, but they had a lesson. They tried to be relevant. Sort of corny now, looking back on it, but it was folksy. It's that's what a lot of people want. They want Mayberry, right? That they would just love to have that kind of easygoing pace and that kind of sense of justice. The fact that Andy, you mind if I go on a little about Andy? The fact that he was a sheriff, I think, was significant, whether they even knew it or not, because what he represented was justice, and that meant, with Opie, fairness, I think. But, let's work together. And I've been thinking of that Wilbert Harrison song since the inauguration. Come on, let's work together. And in these difficult economic times, we're all in trouble. And we're all going to have to work together. Or what was the song they sang at the Lincoln Memorial before the inauguration? Oh, somebody sang Lean on Me, the Bill Withers song, right? And, that's it, Lean on Me. Let's work together, like the Wilbert Harrison tune. And we're going to have to, I think. Or not, but then it's just going to be more difficult to get through scary times. The best way to dispel fear of anything, I'm in trouble, or we're all in big trouble here, is to come together and to support each other, even if you don't know how we're going to get out of this thing. A lot of the problem is solved if we just say we're going to get through this together.
So if you find yourself in trouble, or you realize we're all in trouble, the way to get out of trouble is to wake up, to bring your higher self to see the bigger picture, and to see what steps you need to take to move in the direction of getting back in your integrity, back in what feels right for you. Take a step in that direction, and you're moving toward getting out of trouble. To stay out of trouble, to prevent yourself from getting in trouble, then take a step of awakening and consciously choose your actions. And when you do know better, then do what you know better. Instead of waiting for on second thought, make that on second thought your first thought. And wake up and choose to do things that are on this side of the line of what you've drawn called trouble. Most important of all, I think, though, is disconnect from that childhood experience of, I'm in trouble, because bringing those inadequacies into facing the trouble you face today is ridiculous. And you can release the old, I'm in trouble feeling by feeling it, and at the same time, breathing deeply and feeling safe.
Some years back, Steve and I think one other fellow did a workshop called Integrated Living in Los Angeles, a full-day seminar. I think it was a 12-hour deal. And we had a process in that for waking people up.
Yeah.
And it was 3 steps: a mental step, an emotional step, and a physical step. It was very logical and rooted in core philosophy that we have a trinity within us, a mental, emotional, and physical nature. And it was sort of stop, look, and listen. It was check it out, feel it out, act it out.
Yeah, so like stop, check it out, pay attention to it, notice it in all its components.
Stop, wake up,
Yeah.
Stand at the curb, don't just walk into the street.
Watch, look what's happening
Hold
here.
on, right?
And then get in touch with how does it feel. Get in touch with your feelings about this thing, your intuition and your emotions and your kinesthetic body feelings, and feel it out. Try it on for size. Wear it like a garment.
Including the I'm in trouble now left over from childhood.
Yeah. And then, of course, before you make your choice from all that knowledge you now have of your thoughts and feelings, you get to make your choice and act it out. You get to consciously, purposely be the response that you want to be.
And part of that is mental rehearsal, acting it out in the mind's eye as well. So you can't separate any one of these parts. We talk about emotional intelligence. It requires a mental discernment. We talk about being logical and reasonable, but also intuitive. There's an emotional element in there. And then the mix of the mind and the heart leads to action. But part of paradise thinking is even when you're ready to take action, you've made a decision, visualize it, act it out in your mind's eye, see yourself doing it. Use the pause button. You can rewind a little bit. You can change the perspective like a director, walk all the way around. You solving the problem, you healing your heart, and explore it before you open your eyes, come back to the waking state, and take physical action. So, in a sense, you could think of it as a 4-step process, but it should just be a nice flow, you get it? And, I'm in trouble is something we can leave behind once and for all.
The trouble of childhood, the feeling of I crossed a line even though it wasn't my line, and I'm glad I crossed it. That feeling of I'm in trouble even though I did the right thing, that's got to go. It's okay to get in trouble sometimes, to push the limits, to do social activism, or sometimes you have to say
civil disobedience.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to do things. You have to push the line. Sometimes you have to get in quote unquote trouble. But there's difference between that and the feeling of I've stepped out of my own integrity. And when you do that, that's the kind of trouble we're talking about. So you have the power with your higher self to prevent yourself from doing things that get you in trouble. And when you find yourself in trouble, of your own making or not, you have the ability to step into your higher self and take the steps. And, one step in the direction of out of trouble. And all of a sudden, most of the feeling of fear around the trouble, because most of the feeling is, this is going to last forever or going to get worse. That's the biggest thing. So if it's not going to last forever, it's getting better, then most of the fear around the, I'm in trouble goes away by taking one step toward solving the problem or moving out of trouble. So I think we need to do an audio journey about getting into and out of that place, that mystical and mythical place that parents created, and that real place that exists in the world you live in called trouble.
Yeah, we better do it now or we'll get in trouble.
So let's take a deep breath. Something you almost never do when you're really in trouble. Something you really need to do whenever you're in trouble. Another deep breath. And as you release, well, I guess the antithesis of trouble is a place that we call peace. Feel the release in this place we call peace.
From the top of your head to the soles of your feet, create and sense a letting go of feeling, as if your whole body goes limp like a rag doll. Or like a stick of butter slowly softening on a warm day. See if you can feel that kind of letting go, because that's how it feels to be safe. And the feeling that you're in trouble, that you remember a time when once you were in trouble, and that it might happen again, that feeling or set of feelings cannot coexist with, this feels safe.
So to release the old feeling of being in trouble and replacing it with feeling safe begins with the intention to do just that. So think about that feeling that you had in childhood that you still carry perhaps with you today of, I'm in trouble. And the child's intelligence, the child's abilities that accompany that feeling, that inadequate, small, powerless person. And now, as you feel that feeling of, I'm in trouble, as an adult or a much more awakened being, you can breathe deeply into that experience, feel safe, and know that the memory of having been in trouble remains. But what is gone is much of the pain. With every deep breath you release, feeling a sense of inner peace, you let go of some of the pain. So when you feel in trouble, you can bring the adult, powerful, awakened being to face that trouble and take one step in the direction of out of trouble and bring back all of your power.
And so wherever you imagine yourself to be in this beautiful place of perfect peace, feeling so relaxed, feeling so safe, imagine taking whatever may remain of the sense that you're in trouble now, whether it's something from just a matter of hours or days ago or something from your distant past, from childhood. And imagine putting it down, letting it go right here. As if what you've understood from this program and what you're feeling right now is a level of understanding, a quality of awareness that says, I don't need to carry this any longer. It doesn't protect me. Maybe it never did, but even if it had value, that was so long ago. I'm not moving away from being in trouble. I'm moving toward greatness. It's not that I'm trying to avoid problems as I did as a child and even a young person, so much as seeking solutions, setting goals, aspiring to greatness. Moving on up consciously and deliberately from good through better and better to greatness. A quality of greatness that only you can bring to life.
So bring your higher self with a deep breath to your current trouble. Face it with the maturity and wisdom that you possess. And help the rest of us face a world that's in trouble. And make a difference to help the world be the best. So, the world is in trouble, and you can help. And you can help by identifying the needs and meeting those needs of the people you love. It's up to you to take the lead. If you know someone who's in trouble, send them a copy of this program you hear. Or if you know someone who needs to be optimistic, well, then the audio program's very near. Or people who need to get started, or people who need to keep going, people who need to persevere. If you know people who have fear or anger, we've got the program they need to hear. And you can change the world by changing your world, helping the people that are near and dear give the parents the family learning hour and help their children read, write, and hear. And you can help your cousins and your friends and your neighbors too. We've got the programs, but we don't know which ones to send which ones to, but you do. Change the world. Help the world get out of trouble. You see? One step away from being in trouble, and all your power returns, all your vitality.
Tell yourself that this feeling so safe, the feeling of letting go of any fear that you're in big trouble, that you really messed it up, that you're really capable of inadequacy, and feel it as part of what makes you special and unique. That the truth of who you really are, that self, is always more than enough, onward and upward, higher and higher, through safety, through letting go, and allowing what remains when you drop all the fear and the loathing. Celebrating what remains is the truth, the reality of who you really are. So you move toward greatness and excellence in a balanced and even humble way, with harmony seeking unity. With harmony seeking unity, working together to move yourself, your friends, and the world out of trouble and into a vision of a world that works for everybody, helping each other out. It's really quite simple. Work locally. It'll impact the world. Changing the world really does begin with you, a feeling that you can bring with you effortlessly. As you reorient yourself now to the sound of our voices and think about the room in which you're sitting, and getting ready to open your eyes in just a few moments, wide awake and alert, feeling refreshed and fine, with a full memory, a deep understanding of what's being installed here.
Let it all sink in. As you begin to take another deep breath and bring yourself back to wide awake. Back to wide awake from that place, I think of narrow awake, like really focused. With the higher self, you can avoid getting into trouble and get yourself out of trouble by keeping this one thought in mind. With the higher self, you can look before you leap, and if you're in trouble, you can leap where you look. You can go in the direction you want to go, that you choose to go. So find yourself awakening to your life so that you don't cross that line inadvertently. And if you do find yourself in trouble, then one step in the direction of out of trouble and all your power comes back. Because that childhood, you're in trouble thing, all that energy goes away.
Steve and I think that part of being mindful, this awake and aware, alert, higher self point of view that we discuss here in each of these episodes weekly, is recognizing your self-interest in being of service to other people. To be a contributor benefits you, but not if you do it because it will benefit you. The secret is to give in order to give without needing anything in return. You'll benefit, but that's not why you do it. You have to be motivated by giving, by doing for others, and then be that. That's what we mean by being a contributor. By changing the world in a way that begins with you, changing yourself with these programs at focusedpassion.com and contributing them to other people. Send as many programs as you want to as many people as often as you wish. Be discerning. Send just the right program to the person who's looking for this kind of information, and that will introduce them to focusedpassion.com. And that's the upward spiral we're looking for, the good news. There are solutions to your problems. There are proven skills for healing your hurt. And you're building a collection of those programs, so use our Send One to a Friend gadget to share them with the people that you care about.
We are changing the world, and we need your help. Now, we don't need much money. Just 99 cents a week will do it. And we don't need much time. A couple of minutes a week will do it. What we need is your wisdom and your intelligence. What we need is you to tell us which programs to send to who. We have the programs. We have an amazing list of solutions to problems and way to heal people's hearts. We can help your friends and family. We can help the children in your family learn faster and better. We can help them overcome their problems. We can help them be strong and powerful people. But we don't know which programs to send to who, and that's how you can help us. So for less than $1 a week and less than a couple of minutes a week, you can help us change the world.
So thanks for listening. Join us this week and every week as we podcast and stream these programs from FocusedPassion.com. And as always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha.